dressed man steps out of the jet, his face calm, but his eyes tell a different story. A story of high risks, impossible ambition, and a billion-dollar gamble that could either make history or end in total disaster. In the world of billion-dollar deals, one man plays bigger than anyone else. He's not just a businessman, he's a gambler, a visionary, a man obsessed with the future. Some call him a genius, others, a madman. This is the story of Masayoshi Son, the billionaire who risked everything. But when you bet big, you can also lose big. And when you fall from the top, the whole world watches. Act 1. The boy who dared to dream. A bustling street in post-war Japan. Smoky alleyways lined with small shops. The clang of a metal shutter rolling up. A dimly lit pachinko parlor comes to life. Its flashing lights breaking through the haze of cigarette smoke. A young Masayoshi Son stands by the entrance, his sharp eyes locked on the machines. The metallic clink, clink, clink of tiny steel balls bouncing through the maze of pins echoes through the room. Men in wrinkled suits lean forward, their faces tense, hypnotized by the random chaos of the game. Before billion-dollar deals, before SoftBank, before the Vision Fund, there was just a boy watching, learning, absorbing a world where fortunes could be won and lost in seconds. His father ran a pachinko gambling business, not by choice, but by necessity. And young Masa, he saw something most kids wouldn't even notice. The game wasn't just luck, it was strategy. A young Masa sits cross-legged on the floor, drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick, mimicking the way the pachinko balls moved. He studies them like a scientist, his small hands adjusting invisible pins in the air. The game fascinated him, but it wasn't enough. He wanted more. In a world that told him he was an outsider, Masa knew the odds were stacked against him. Born to Korean immigrants in post-war Japan, he wasn't supposed to make it big. He wasn't supposed to dream. But while other kids played in the streets, Masa was asking questions. Why does the house always win? How does money move? And most importantly, how do I change the game? A Japanese broadcaster reports on the rapid rise of America's economy, scenes of Wall Street, of Silicon Valley, of endless opportunity. A young Masa watches from the corner of a cluttered living room, eyes full of determination. If he wanted to win, really win, he couldn't stay here. Japan was too small. The game was too rigged. The real money wasn't in pachinko parlors. It wasn't even in Japan. It was in America. A land where fortunes were built on innovation, where rules could be rewritten. A place where just maybe an outsider like him had a chance. Masa had made up his mind. He wasn't just going to America. He was going to change the future. Act 2. The birth of a billionaire. UC Berkeley, campus, 1978. Students rush across Sproul Plaza. Protests against tuition hikes. Free speech rally. Startups wanted. In the middle of it all, a young Masayoshi Son, barely in his 20s, strides forward with a determined look in his eyes. At Berkeley, Masa wasn't just another foreign student. He was on a mission. While others were figuring out their majors, Masa was building his future. His mind was a constant storm of ideas, his pockets filled with crumpled notes, half-written business plans, and sketches of gadgets the world had never seen. A dimly lit library, Masa, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, flips through a textbook at lightning speed. Nearby, students whisper, confused by the strange foreigner scribbling frantically in a battered notebook, lost in a world of numbers, circuits, and possibilities. He wasn't just studying, he was hunting for the next big idea. He pestered his professors with endless questions. How does venture capital work? What's the future of computing? How can I make $1 million before I graduate? Most students came to class for knowledge. Masa came for strategy. Masa standing outside professors' offices, knocking persistently. A professor sighing, rubbing his temples, before finally giving in to yet another barrage of questions. Masa, pacing in his tiny dorm room, walls plastered with sketches, flowcharts, and wild predictions of the future. But ideas weren't enough. Masa needed money. He needed a way in. Later, Masa at his desk, tinkering with an early prototype of an electronic translator. Wires spill over the table. A tiny screen flickers. The device beeps softly. He watches, heart pounding, as the screen translates a word successfully. He leans back, breathless. This is it. A simple idea, an electronic dictionary. It didn't look like much, but in Masa's mind, it was the first domino, the one invention that would start it all. Masa, in a small Berkeley dorm room, cold calling companies. One by one, they shut him down. Rejection after rejection, executives shaking their heads, phone calls being cut short. Then a pause. He dials again, a new company, a long silence. Then, we're interested. Sharp Electronics saw potential. They saw the future. And before Masa even had time to process what was happening, his invention had made him a millionaire. Masa, standing in Sharp's headquarters, watching his first deal go through. He grips the pen tightly. This wasn't just money. This was validation. At just 22 years old, Masayoshi Son had done what most people only dreamed of. $1 million idea. $1 million deal. But for Masa, it wasn't enough. This was just the beginning. Act 3, the rise of SoftBank. Tokyo, 1981. The city is alive with energy. Neon signs flickering, businessmen rushing through crowded streets. The hum of an economy on the rise. But inside a tiny, windowless office, in the center of it all, Masayoshi Son, mid-20s, sleeves rolled up, phone in one hand, calculator in the other, pitching his vision to anyone who will listen. This wasn't some corporate empire. This was a one-room, scrappy startup with a crazy name, SoftBank. And at the time, it wasn't even a bank. It wasn't even a tech company. It was just Masa, a few desks, and an idea. The office phone rings. Masa picks up. Another rejection. He exhales, rubs his temples, and dials again. This time, a hesitant maybe. His eyes light up. Back in Japan, Masa launched SoftBank, not as a tech giant, not as a telecom empire, but as a software distributor. He was selling floppy disks, computer manuals, anything he could get his hands on. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't groundbreaking. But Masa was relentless. Stacks of software boxes piling up in a tiny office. Fax machines overheating from incoming orders. Masa running on coffee and ambition. Personally loading shipments into a delivery truck. He wasn't just building a business. He was building momentum. But Masa knew something that no one else did. The real money wasn't in selling software. It was in owning the companies that made the software. Masa negotiating with small tech firms, convincing them that Japan was about to become the next Silicon Valley. So while other businessmen were focused on selling, Masa was betting. Betting on a future most people couldn't even see yet. Betting on the internet, before most people even knew what it was. By the mid-90s, SoftBank wasn't just a software distributor anymore, it was a kingmaker. Masa had turned himself into Japan's ultimate deal-maker, pouring money into tech companies that would change the world. But his biggest gamble? That came in 2000, when he met a former English teacher from China. At the time, Alibaba was a nobody, a tiny Chinese company with zero revenue, barely surviving. But when Masa looked at Jack Ma, he didn't see a struggling entrepreneur. He saw a reflection of himself. While everyone else laughed at Jack Ma's dream of creating China's biggest e-commerce empire, Masa wrote a $20 million check based on nothing more than a gut feeling. Fast forward to 2014, the New York Stock Exchange. Alibaba's record-breaking IPO, market valuation, $200 billion. $20 million in, $60 billion out. That's a 3,000x return. But if you think that was his biggest win, think again. Because Masa wasn't done betting. Not by a long shot. Act 4, the Vision Fund. A sleek private jet descends from the golden sky, its wheels touching down on the sun-scorched runway of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The desert heat shimmers in the air. Inside the jet, Masayoshi Son adjusts his tie, his mind already racing through the numbers. This isn't just another deal. This is the deal. 2016, Masayoshi Son is no longer just a tech investor. He's building an empire. And to build an empire, you need capital. A lot of it. But Masa, he wasn't here to ask for millions. He was here to ask for billions. His destination? The royal palace. His audience? Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The stakes? $45 billion. Inside the gilded palace, chandeliers hang like crystal galaxies. The room is silent. The crown prince, the most powerful man in Saudi Arabia, sits at the head of the table. Across from him, Masa, undeterred, leans forward. The pitch begins. For most people, raising $45 billion would take a lifetime. Masa wanted it in 1 hour. And what was he selling? A vision. A dream of a world transformed by artificial intelligence, automation, and a new digital empire. A clock ticking. Silence hangs heavy in the air. The crown prince listens, expression unreadable. Then, a simple reply, yes. A signed agreement, a handshake. $45 billion in funding secured in record time. And just like that, the world's biggest tech investment fund was born, the Vision Fund. Billions pouring into Uber, WeWork, Slack, DoorDash, Arm Holdings. For Masa, the strategy was simple: go big or go home. This wasn't about investing. This was about rewiring the global economy. But with great bets come great losses. And soon, Masa would find himself caught in the biggest financial storm of his career. Act 5: The Fall, WeWork, and the billion-dollar disaster. A dimly lit office. The glow of a massive screen reflects off the glass walls. Stock tickers flashing red. A news anchor's voice drones in the background. WeWork's IPO officially dead. Masa sits at the head of a long boardroom table, motionless. His fingers tap rhythmically against the table, but his face? Unreadable. The gambler has just lost his biggest bet, WeWork. What was supposed to be Masa's greatest victory turned into his biggest failure. The startup he had backed with $10 billion, the company he once called a revolution, had just imploded. Masa had believed in one man, Adam Neumann, a wild-eyed, charismatic entrepreneur who promised to turn WeWork into more than just an office rental company. He said it would be a movement. He said it would change the way humans work, live, and connect. And Masa? He believed him. Flashback to a rooftop in New York. Adam Neumann, barefoot, sipping tequila, gesturing wildly as he talks about the future. Masa, amused but intrigued, nods. "You're crazy," Masa says. Adam smirks. "Good crazy or bad crazy?" Masa grins. "The best kind." They shake hands. Masa wasn't just investing in a business. He was investing in a vision. And in Adam Neumann, he saw something familiar. A rule breaker, a dreamer, a gambler, just like himself. The money was real, but the numbers, they were an illusion. Losses piled up. Valuations skyrocketed on hype, not profits. And then it all came crashing down. At first, Masa brushed off the criticism. He'd seen his bets mocked before. He'd been told Alibaba would fail, that Yahoo Japan was a mistake, that SoftBank itself was a fantasy. He had always been right, until now. Masa watches as investors flee. SoftBank's stock begins to fall, his empire shaking. For the first time, the world questioned Masa's magic touch. Was he really a genius, or just another gambler on a losing streak? Act 6: The legacy of a risk-taker. A vast glass-walled boardroom high above Tokyo. The city stretches endlessly below, bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Inside, Masayoshi Son, older, wiser, sits at the head of the table. The room is silent, but his mind is alive, plotting the next move. A single sheet of paper rests before him. It's not a resignation. It's a plan. Because here's the thing about gamblers, they never stop playing. For Masa, the game isn't over, not even close. Masa walks away, never looking back. The past, gone. The future, wide open. A new Tokyo skyline, one filled with autonomous cars, robotics labs, and AI-driven cities. The world is changing. And Masa? He's not just watching, he's building it. Even after losing billions, Masa keeps betting. AI, robotics, quantum computing, the future of technology itself. Others hedge their risks. But Masa? He doubles down. Because to him, fortune doesn't favor the cautious, it favors the bold. Because Masa isn't just betting on startups anymore. He's betting on the future of humanity itself. He risked everything for everything, and anything less than everything meant that he was a loser. Masayoshi Son, the gambling man, the billionaire who risks it all, and just might win again. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more incredible stories.